So as far as the blade adjustment goes, I like how it's cutting through that grain. This board is really nice and consistent, and I feel like I could go a little more aggressive with a deeper cut, but I think I'm going to keep it where it's at and just spend the time, especially if I'm posting this on YouTube. I don't want this to turn into an entirely different kind of video. Guitar building wipeouts. So I'd rather just have it take a little bit longer and end up with a nice clean job. So you should be able to see now the difference, hopefully, between that square corner and what we're doing here. And I'm just reading the depth as I go down. You definitely want to pay attention as you're going on the side and not get too close to that fingerboard or even the wood around that fingerboard. That I would definitely rather hit with a sanding block and not dig out a ton of wood away from that fingerboard. Okay, so we're working down pretty nice and even. You can see that as I get up here towards the heel end, toward the end of my draw, I'm actually leaving this a little bit higher. So I do want to kind of come in and take a little bit more of that off. It's just a natural thing that happens with the ergonomics of your pulling motion. So as you're pulling back, you're also pulling up toward yourself. It's just instinctive. You don't want to crash this thing, always be crashing it into the neck. So I'm sure that you're always pulling a little bit up at the end. That's not a bad thing because, again, we want that taper from a little bit thinner to a little fuller. But I am ending up with a little bit more corner here than here. So I can come in here and take a little bit more of that off. Just right up here, just kind of equal out the amount of corner that I've got up here to here, just so I keep this a nice consistent line. I'm really happy with this contour, with this profile, and it's a little bit hard to see. I know it's kind of flattening out in the camera here. but I'll try to turn the camera on enough of an angle so you can see down the length. Pretty much what I'm looking for is that channel, the edge of that channel to disappear, right? So then I know that I'm exactly on the same level. There's a hint of a line here that I probably, wow, I don't know. I like this shape so much, I'm a little bit afraid to go in there and try to knock that down further. The danger, of course, is if I knock it down too far, then the neck is actually getting narrower behind this point, which you don't want. That, I think, at that point, and especially because it's so consistent, I don't even know if you can see it in the camera. Trying to sharpen up a little bit there. But it's a whisper of a line of an edge. That I would much rather leave up to the 60 grit sanding block. So yeah, for sure, not going to go further. That's it. Now we travel down the length just so you can see. And again, down at this end, again, just a hint of an edge. And of course, you're going to get that a little bit more at this end because when you're starting out with the spoke shave, of course, try to show you here. Of course, you're starting out, you're digging into the wood, but as you pull back, it's just the natural motion of your body, of your arms. You're going to pull up. You're going to pull that spoke shave up. And so you're going to end up thicker down at this end and even shying away from that channel. Again, the amount that we're talking about here is so small. I mean, you can just see. We can hit that with the sanding block, no problem, and take that down nice and smooth. And of course, we want to do that anyway, because that's what's going to blend our transition right into that channel. So one last look at the profile here. And that's what we want. Okay, so I've got both sides shaved as close to the same as I possibly can, as I've ever done. There's still going to be some forming for sure with the heavier grits of sandpaper. But I just want to give you a look at where we're at now and kind of like what I'm going for. So, if I imagine my hand around the neck with my thumb just at the top, and I look at the web, especially the web of my hand and the palm, and I just go down the length. And even if I don't press a lot, so that of course I'm not forcing my hand to conform to the neck, I want the neck to fit the natural curve of my hand. There's no obvious gaps opening up anywhere on the corners or at the top or the sides caused by a corner. Now, hopefully from the camera you can see it looks pretty round and consistent all the way up the neck. And of course a good little test is this. And if you feel anywhere that your hand gets stopped by a corner or you'll feel the edge, then you know you've got to hit it again. But actually I've already done that before putting the camera back on. And this is it. This is exactly where I want to be. I did come in probably the first about 5, 6, maybe. What we got here? 5 or 6 frets, and took some of the center off with the spoke shave, just so that I knew the height was going to be consistent and rise up to this point. You might be able to see there's still some of the flat left, but down here maybe you can see that it's been rounded off. That's exactly where I want to be. So before I get to the sanding blocks though, almost forgot, we've got to deal with the headstock to the neck transition, of course, because then I want to get my sanding blocks in and I want to make that transition all the way up to the joint of the headstock. So now it gets down to removing these corners and transitioning this block down to the headstock. For that, I'm going to use a couple of things. A rasp, which is a nice inexpensive rasp. You can pick these up from any of the home supply stores. You've got two faces. You've got a flat face, and then you've got a radius face, and then you've got a rough and a fine tooth on those two faces. For this, I use the curve, the radius face, and I want to be very careful here, especially if you're using the aggressive, the rough tooth. It's very easy to tear out grain here, and that's something you really don't want to do. That takes quite a bit of fixing. You don't want to get too aggressive. You want to have good control. And at this point, yeah, you're becoming a sculptor. You're starting to really think about how this curve is going to transition to that curve, and also curve to the headstock this way. But first, I'm going to start with those corners. So I'll use the rough tooth, and I'll probably start by pulling more than pushing. Pushing, there's the risk of getting into my neck area. Pulling, I can get away from that neck area, right? So.
Ouch!